Just as the frenzy from the spot fixing allegations of a week ago were dying down, and we here in Cricinfo were thinking of a possible breather, news has come in that the ICC has pulled out one of their key umpires, Asad Rauf, from officiating in the ICC Champions Trophy. This is Gokul Chakravarti, and I have with me Sharda Ugra and Joy to discuss this topic as well as a couple of other news items which are making the rounds on this another very difficult day for cricket. So let's first talk about the news with Asad Rauf. Joy, what are your reactions?
Well, we don't know much officially as yet, except that he has been pulled out, and for the ICC to do that without, before the matter was played out across television, etc., that means they must be having something on him. So it must be something fairly serious for them to pull him out. So I would say that's another, it's just another sad thing to happen in this very sad week that we've been experiencing.
Sharda, umpires are always held to the highest standards in cricket, especially because so much related to the match's result depends on them, and them being perceived as being people with utmost integrity and honesty. So regardless of what gets discovered in the case of Asad Rauf as the days roll on, how do you think this affects the whole perception of umpires and their standing in the game?
It's interesting that you should ask me this, Gokul. We know that you're sort of a certified umpire yourself from the West Indies Umpires Association out from the US. I mean, the umpires play a very, very important part in the game, and we don't notice them unless they make a mistake, sort of like the wicket keeper. But they're the people who set the game up. They walk out onto the field before the players. They set things up. They make sure that everything's in order. And the fact that this has happened to an elite panel umpire is sort of fairly damning in the sense of how easily the sort of the seamy side of the business has got to him, to the point at which got to Asad Rauf, to the point at which the ICC has said that we are pulling you off from a major tournament. The Champions Trophy, I think, after the World Cup is sort of the biggest multilateral tournament that takes place in cricket. I mean, not counting the 2020 World Cup. And for him to be pulled out of what is a very prestigious assignment. And Asad Rauf was one of the ICC's top umpire. He was the umpire of the year. He had a great record, and after Aleem Dar, he was seen as the next, extremely competent and extremely, extremely sort of an umpire of the very highest standing to come out of Pakistan. And we have to say we don't know what the case is about, but if there are investigations by the police that have led the ICC to do this, it's fairly, they wouldn't have done this had it been something very casual. They obviously know that maybe something worse is going to hit us, and we have to just be sort of prepared for it.
Right, and like you said, we'll emphasize over and over again that not much has come out.
I'll jump in there, Gokul, and I'll ask you as you as an umpire, what does being an umpire mean to you? Why did you, very few of us as cricketers in whatever capacity or cricket fans aspire to become umpires, but you did that, and you walked that talk, and you went through the exams or whatever, and you are now a certified umpire. What does being an umpire mean to you?
Well, I'm a control freak. I just wanted to control everything, and being an umpire allows you to do that. But jokes apart, I'm an avid follower of cricket, and way back in 2001 when I saw VVS Lakshman play that innings, I just decided I wanted to be as close as possible to that kind of action as possible. And my best years as a cricketer were behind me, so that's a simple reason why I got into it. But having done that, umpiring challenges you at so many different levels. You have to be a man manager, you have to be a time manager, you have to know the nitty-gritties and be willing to get into the details of everything, and on top of all of this, have this kind of a detached and unbiased approach to things. All of this means you need to have, at the basis of it all, and honesty and integrity, which goes beyond anything else.
Yeah.
You know, because there are so many grown men, and I've always found this fascinating. You know, so many grown men and women, as it might be, who are putting their utmost trust in you and saying, you know, I might be earning $1 million after this game, but I'm putting the result of this match, and in many ways, my future as a cricketer or as a tennis player or whatever, in your hands. And that's a tremendous responsibility.
Yeah.
So that has always kind of spurred me on to keep abreast with all the latest laws changes and everything, and you know, and to treat everybody as, you know, the players as you know, players first, and the law says the very first thing, you know, the very first law is called the player. It's always about the player.
Yeah.
So if you remember those things, you know, that it's about the player, at the same time you're just trying to control a bunch of grown men and women at that level, then it makes it easy, and without kind of assuming the powers and, you know, assuming it as a role of a judge almost, you can do a good job.
So you have to sort of hold yourself up to a slightly higher standard. You have to, you know, be a little different. I mean, there's a certain moral kind of thing that comes into play with being an umpire, like being a judge, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I always find, you know, umpires. I've umpired at the highest level in the US, right? So I haven't done international matches because the rigors there are different, and players come in with a different level of training and understanding of and savvy of the laws. But at the level at which I've umpired, I often find umpires taking themselves way too seriously. You know, which they don't have to, because the laws and the players are already doing that for you. They put their trust and they depend on your responsibility. So you don't need to do that overtly. And that acts counterproductively, actually. You lose the player's respect when you kind of take on more power than you need to. Whereas that's a very fine line. Many umpires, you might remember the Shakur Rana incident or even the Daryl Hare incident. You know, often that's a fine line where players lose respect for an umpire when they see them take on a lot more than they need to. And like Sharda, you pointed out, that's where umpires being invisible comes in.
And no, like what you're saying about Daryl Hare and Shakur Rana is that when the umpire becomes too much of an umpire almost, you know, and
the umpire becomes the story.
Yeah, exactly. And Dickie Bird just appeared on one of the TV channels, and he sounded absolutely gutted. He was very shocked, and he said, the game has come down to its knees, which is, you know, it's quite an alarming thing to hear someone say that the game is, you know, it's on its knees now because an umpire has been sort of set aside from something because they say that you're involved in something that we have to get it checked out. You can't stand in a match. And Asad Rauf had a very good sort of way of dealing with players, and he was much more social. Alim Dar is sort of slightly formal and whatever. And Asad Rauf was very casual and chatty and relaxed, but he was a very, very good umpire. I mean, he did a couple of series in England when India had toured England in 2011. And he was superb. And it was not that India were giving him a chance; they all were giving catches to slips and all that. But he was an excellent umpire. So you just wonder what has happened in the time that it has reached this place. You know, that it's got here. So it is. I mean, we do take umpires for granted, and all we sort of normally do with umpires is that you either criticize them or you pay no attention to them at all. You know, I say, okay, who's got the best umpire of the year on the list or so on. This time it's got the importance, and like you're saying, Joy, that the significance of the figure has somehow just, we've been reminded about it suddenly because this has happened today.
And you know, even as an umpire, I feel like saying this, that, you know, not much has been done to keep the umpires themselves in check, the umpiring community. Because by and large, the assumption is that, you know, someone becomes an umpire with a certain level of integrity that's inherent within them. But nowhere, at least in my case, and I've been trained by the West Indies Cricket Umpires Association. So it's Billy Doctorow and Steve Buckner, and I've come from the same school of umpiring. You know, nowhere in our training are we trained for honesty or integrity? It's just assumed, all right? But I think the time has come. I mean, a lot is at stake. And even as an umpire, I can tell you that, we are just easy targets for people to approach. And an umpire can have a much bigger impact on a match,
of course,
than any player ever can, because players depend on other players doing certain things. But an umpire can single-handedly change a decision, right? And we take it for granted as viewers and other players. We have seen umpires make mistakes, so it could be taken in all our collective strides. But I haven't seen, and you folks have been covering the sport for a while as well. There is not much of a rigor in terms of keeping the umpires under check, and having them to do due diligence to prove that they have come through the ranks, or they have kind of fulfilled certain obligations in order to stay clean, essentially.
True. The other thing, Sharda, did it surprise you the speed at which the ICC sort of proactively took this decision? I mean, we've been watching TV non-stop the last week, and there has been nothing about this on TV and very little in the print media, and yet suddenly this lands in our in our inbox just as we are thinking that if we can get one early night off, and this thing lands in our in our mail. It took me by surprise. Did it take you by surprise?
Yeah, absolutely. You heard people grumbling about the umpiring in the IPL and all. That was fine. But for this action to be taken so swiftly and so cleanly and without any doubt or waffling or anything, it was out there. It was in the inbox, and the reasons were given. They said, we want him to stand down from this game in his own interest, in the interest of the event, and in the interest of the sport, and that's it. There was no waffling about it. Like, there has been so much waffling. The last week has been full of waffling, this way, that way. One set of cops are waffling, the players are waffling, their families are upset. There's been nothing of that. It's been a very professional way of dealing with the situation. And I'm assuming, it's complete assumption, that the ICC has in a way, Mr. Savani had gone out to meet the people at the Delhi police. He came for supposedly just a 15-minute meeting, but he's a cop himself. So I'm not surprised that if they would have been in touch with them and says, let us know what else is on, let us know what else is being said, because of these, I think 7 bookies or 11 bookies or how many ever bookies they arrested. Let us know what they're saying. And there has been a two-way communication, obviously, that's been working so that they could take this decision. And on the other hand, you've got the BCCI saying, let a decision be taken, let it be proved in court, and it's been all this dawdling about what is a very troublesome and a very disturbing issue. And the ICC have dealt with it extremely professionally and very, very swiftly.
Speaking of BCCI, now let's move on to the next news of the day, which is that there are indications that Mumbai police might be directly investigating the Chennai Super Kings CEO, Mr. Meyyappan. What are the implications of that, if it is true, Sharda?
Again, if it is true, it will possibly be a far bigger story than what has happened. Joy, I think we have to set ourselves up for many more weeks of this. Than what happened with the arrest of the players. The arrest of the players was an enormously an incident that kind of shook you, because it was players being taken away like little thugs somewhere, and with the police with black masks on their face or whatever. But this will probably be a bigger incident, because this tells you that there is there is sort of a whole sort of culture of just doing something because you have the power to do it, and doing something that is on the other side of the law and other side of ethics and everything else. Just even if betting in India was legal, I don't think the owner of any team in any league places a bet. I don't know what the thing is. I don't think anyone in the EPL places a bet. I don't know if the Glazers are placing a bet on Manchester United one way or the other. I don't think that's done. So if this has happened, and if you're even close to that, it's a terrible reflection. It's a terrible sort of day for the IPL itself, as a league, as a brand, what it stands for. If one of your own has been seen doing something like this, because you have access to so much information, you are sitting in the dugout. You are involved. You know what's happening in the team meetings. You know who's going to play. You have sort of like in the stock market. This is almost like insider trading in a way, that you're kind of you're privy to extra information and you're placing a bet on it in the hope of making profit for yourself.
So I mean, there have been several parallels being drawn to the T20 spurt in recent years versus how the Packer spurt happened in ODI cricket several years ago. But there's a key difference, right? At that time, even though it was seen as corrupting the game or whatever it was, really it did not. You know, it stayed on, and so much muck did not come out of it because there was still a sense of, you know, proper business being conducted. But now in this,
and even though one man, Gokul, even though one man owned the teams, he owned all the teams. He could have done whatever he wanted. You know, he owned the entire team.
The contests were fair, and there was never a finger raised or anything. Now we have seen Alan Stanford, and now the IPL. There's always a question. You know, in Stanford's case, everything was proven. Of course, there's a lot of things to be proven or disproven in the case of the IPL. But the point remains that there is a huge shadow of doubt. What's the difference between that time and now?
Well, I would say I would sort of take up another argument which might answer this, which is I believe that you know, what happens in some leagues when there are cases of fixing, etc., is that the teams are punished as much as the players, and you've seen this especially in Italy in football, where the biggest team, Juventus is the biggest football team in Italy. It's the Manchester United of Italy. But when they were, when they were involved and it was proved they were involved in fixing, then they were relegated. So the team takes the hit as much as the player. I believe that, that should happen here as well. You can't relegate, but there should be some action taken, because you can't. It cannot be just 3 players, who are punished.
And I think what the problem that will happen in this, Joy, and what you're saying is that because there are so few teams, it will become, but it's not our fault. We didn't do anything. So now Rajasthan Royals, all the owners are walking around saying that this is terrible, we have come through a tough time, or whatever it is. But at the moment, there was a very interesting set of conversations on television. As Joy, Gokul, as you'll see, we've been watching television non-stop. Like, you get up in the morning, switch on the TV. Before you go to sleep, you switch off the TV. That's it. The TV is on the whole day. Is that everyone's sort of turned around, the owners particularly, the club of owners have turned around and made this about 3 players. And if you ask them a question about ownership pattern, who owns you, what kind of profits do you make, what are the finances, they just pay no attention to it at all. They just don't answer the question. So there is a sort of almost a wall of resistance to information about their own sort of financial standing, or their own financial sort of antecedents and what they are. And there is this great lesson and lecture that you get from them about how terrible the players are, and the boys are banding together and everything is fine. So what Joy is saying is probably the way ahead for the IPL, but I don't know whether they have who can do it? I mean, look at the number 1 team. The board president owns this team that is now under some kind of doubt because cops have turned up at the door of the CEO. Whatever the cops wanted, they've turned up at the door of the CEO. So who's going to call, who's going to bell the cat or whatever? This is classic emperor. The IPL is like this emperor's new clothes scenario, but there's no child shouting on the emperor. It doesn't have any clothes. It's like that. That's the kind of situation it is, which is why conflict of interest, etc., is such a big issue. That when it comes to a situation like this is the pointy end of the conflict of interest. This is what it looks like.
So, I mean, one of the other things that's been raised, which is related to what you're saying, Sharda, is that is the onus on a league such as IPL and its owners to put processes in place and to make sure that they're vigilant, especially, and take ownership and responsibility of the overall actions, and is it important to have those systems in place before rolling it out in a haste?
I think so, and it seems from a lot of the conversations that we've been having, and Sharda, of course, will know much more about this, but it seems that the league was set up, and then then thought was given to these, the most important part, the basis of any league, the disciplinary thing, the
Regulation.
right, so the due diligence. I think the league was set up first, the money was made, the franchises were bought and sold, and then thought was given to, okay, how do we educate players, and things
And
like
only now, Joy. This is happening only now. They are talking about educating players only now. If nothing would have happened, they wouldn't have cared. They would have told you about ad rates being high and TRPs being high and whatever. They wouldn't have cared about sort of these kind of governance issues if this hadn't come up. If the Delhi police hadn't started listening to some tapes, to some conversations.
Yeah, I don't think it was fully thought out. The implications of having a $1 billion league with all that money, with players, with very highly paid players, and then taking it to South Africa. There are so many issues. There's so many things that have been coming out over the past few years, but I think there's a Teflon coated management of the IPL and the BCCI. Nothing sticks. Everything bounces back.
Is that a sign of the times, Sharda? Should we be wary of any such thing that grows so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you learn, I think, as you grow older, I don't know whether Joy will agree with me on this, is when it says, if it looks too good to be true, it's not that good. Just literally, it's like the most basic, fundamentally simplistic way of looking at a thing. But if it looks too good to be true, it's probably not. And what Joy was saying about the league is that every time, Lalit Modi is now on Twitter, like he's more on Twitter than we are watching TV. It's like that. He's kind of going all guns blazing as to the entire setup of the BCCI and so on. But he's the guy who created the league. And all these people he got into it, all these franchises whom he's fighting for, they are all whom he calls friends and family. He refers to them as friends and family still. So there's no guarantee that he's the savior, that he'll come back and save something. No, he's the guy who let the genie out of the bottle. And now because the genie is turned around, started to fight.
You and I have been working on stories about all the various improprieties in the league. Yes, they have not been proven as yet, but there are so many stories. I mean, there are so many cases. There's so much litigation surrounding this league that it's just. I mean, it just doesn't smell right.
Yeah, exactly. If it looks too good to be true. Or maybe that should be if it looks too glamorous or something like that,
And speaking of a happy family that the IPL is, the Pune Warriors, Sahara Pune Warriors have announced that they don't want to be part of that family anymore.
Well, they did it last year, and then they came back. This time, maybe it's forward, but they haven't yet officially conveyed their decision to the BCCI. So we really don't know what's going on over there. But it can't be good for the IPL that it's lost its two most expensive franchises. Pune Warriors was $370 million and Kochi was $330 million. The two most expensive franchises in the space of 2 or 3 years. So that's a knock of it's a lot of dollars, a lot of $1 million that has been shaved off its annual revenues. And if I was a shareholder in the BCCI or the IPL, I would be asking questions. How can you allow this?
And there's so much litigation, like Joy is saying. There is just a slew of litigation that the BCCI has been hit with over the past maybe 6 years, 7 years. It just comes in droves. And previously, it wasn't that much because the money wasn't that big. And all sort of deals were settled out of court or whatever it was. But right now, there's just enormous amount. There's income tax, there's competition commission. And it's all sort of centered around the IPL. Income tax, competition commission, enforcement directorate. They are fighting. They had a deal with the Rajasthan Royals. They were in some litigation. I don't know whether the Kings 11 litigation is sorted out. You don't know what's happening with Pune.
This case in the Supreme Court.
Yes, exactly.
So we've now spoken about 3 items of news today. But the average Indian cricket fan, I mean, what does this mean to him or her? I mean, IPL hasn't been devoid of controversies from the day go. International cricket also has had its, issues over the years, especially in the last 10 years. But cricket seems to be growing.
Yeah, I think, and I think I mentioned it a couple of days ago, that it's possible that you have a new set of fans who look on the IPL as the sort of WWF, that sort of wrestling, where it's entertainment. You don't look at it as serious wrestling, so you don't look at this as serious cricket. You go there for the entertainment, you go there for the music, and it's all part of it. The food, the beer, the music, the stars who come, and then the cricketers who come and play. So you go for the full package. Cricket is part of it. And you come away after 4 hours, you feel happy. It's it's a good evening's entertainment.
Last time, all the controversy that was there before, in all these 5-6 years of the IPL, used to be about stuff like this, litigation, ownership, pattern, share. So fans don't really care about that. They don't care who owns teams and what the rest of the thing is. This is the first time that you said that, listen, what you're seeing doesn't not necessarily have to be real. How they deal with it, that's another thing. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I have problems watching a match these days on TV because you're saying, how can you watch a match? How can everything be normal when all this is going on, around you?
But then that is the IPL. If you zoom out a little bit to international cricket,
that's what I was coming to. I think the sad and the dangerous thing is that the Champions Trophy. A lot of people are saying, Sharda, again, you would know better. A lot of people are saying that. That's even more vulnerable to corrupt practices. It's not just the IPL. You will see more of this, in something like the Champions Trophy or, further down the line.
And also because the Champions Trophy happens to be a multinational tournament, a multilateral tournament where lots of countries come and play. And therefore, your viewership is wider. Therefore, people who want to gamble have access to watching live television and so on. Over there, I have a little bit of hope. Maybe the ICC's sort of structures are stronger in place than the IPLs happen to be. We don't know. Maybe it's the international side of the game that is far stronger, and which is why the illegal mafia and the illegal betting industry has said, forget about that stuff so much. Let's concentrate on the IPL, which is 2 months of non-stop, 70 matches, 80 matches, whatever. Sometimes like 300 matches it feels like. Let's concentrate on this. I mean, that's the only thing you can sort of go by, because it will be then you're back to the days of Hansi Cronje and worse if it turns out that the Champions Trophy is also full of smelly things going on.
Well, on that rather grim note,
yeah, I mean, I just like to say one thing, that at this point, there has been no allegation, or none of these allegations has been proved. It's the sad thing is that there are so many allegations and so many different kinds of allegations, and they've been coming not just for the past week, but that's just the formal allegation. There have been suspicions for the last couple of years. It's just that in the last week, a lot of it has been formalized. Things are now in court or with the police. We can only hope that whatever happens, that the resolution is swift either way. And that the game can go on.
All right. On that hopeful note, you turned it from despair to hope in just 1 minute, Joy. No wonder we call you Joy. All right. We'll end this hangout on that, and we'll continue to follow this on ESPNcricinfo.com.
Thanks, Sharda. Go back to your TV.
I will go back to TV immediately.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joy.
Thank you.